Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Governor Lamont, Lieutenant Governor Bysewicz, State Representative Cheeseman, local and state elected officials and leaders, General Yvonne, representing the Connecticut National Guard, Admiral Kelly, from our friends across the river there in the Coast Guard, service members and members of our community, welcome. Welcome to Groton, the submarine capital of the world. Mayor Hedrick knows that well. And to Naval Submarine Base, New London. I'm Captain Todd Moore, the 52nd Commanding Officer of Subbase New London, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and greet you here at the Submarine Force Museum. Fortunately, my comments are so lengthy they'll stay put during this high wind speed here. But I wanted to offer just a quick welcome and to mention why we're here. Today we celebrate the latest effort of the state of Connecticut to enhance our nation's defense by improving quality of life for service members and their families. And how appropriate that we do so here in front of the state's ship, historic ship Nautilus, on the eastern terrace of the Thames River. A few hundred yards upriver is where the Navy got its roots in this area by a grant from the state of Connecticut, which conveyed the land which would become the submarine base in a deed of gift in 1868. Today, Submarine Base New London is home to 16 fast attack submarines and some 70 tenant commands. These include the Undersea Warfare Development Center, the Submarine Learning Center, and the Naval Submarine School, which have global reach in advancing our nation's undersea superiority. Of course, at the heart of the submarine base are more than 22,000 active and reserve military members, military family members, and civilian employees of Navy Team New London. And today, those military family members, especially spouses transitioning into Connecticut for employment, will be the focus and ultimate beneficiaries of this celebration. So I know some Navy and Coast Guard spouses have joined us this morning, and they are here because they know firsthand through their personal stories how this act in expanding economic opportunity in occupations licensed by the Departments of Public Health and Consumer Protection could have benefited them in the past or will be benefiting them now or in the future. So thank you for attending today. But most importantly, thank you for what you spouses do every day, serving alongside your military member and supporting your military family. This past Saturday saw the commissioning of the newest fast attack submarine in our fleet, USS Hyman G. Rickover, at Electric Boat down the river. Anyone lucky enough to have heard the words of the ship's sponsor, Mrs. Darlene Greenert, understands exactly the nature of the military spouse. As she said, to paraphrase her, it may be the highly trained and well-equipped service member on the front lines, but it's the spouse and family back home that are at the heart of every military unit. And I'll let my fellow services speak for themselves, but I'm sure they would give a knowing nod to the fact that there isn't a submarine that drives up or down this river that isn't packed with children's drawings and family photos tucked with care around the sailors' bunks. And to keep faith with those service members who go downrange in defense of our nation, we owe their families our respect, and I consider it my job to make them feel welcome and fully supported here at the subbase. That is why the spouse licensure portability is so important to the Department of Defense. And I'm happy that Mr. Chris Arnold, the Northeast Regional Liaison for the Department of Defense's Office of Military Community and Family Policy, could join us today to celebrate. Thank you, Chris. Before I turn the proceedings over to Mr. Bob Ross, the Connecticut Executive Director for the Office of Military Affairs, allow me to end my welcome on this additional note of thanks. Navy Team New London members here that know that one of my priorities is to make our community and the installation a better place to live and work. I want Navy families to be begging to come here to southeastern Connecticut. I want service members to bring their families here, to settle down here and retire here, and to continuing to contribute to the vitality of southeastern Connecticut. So, Governor, thank you and all state and local leaders and citizens of this great state for helping make this community a better place to live and work. Thank you all very much.
Well, good morning, everybody. Governor, thank you for being here. Lieutenant Governor is going to join us in just a few minutes. Admiral Kelly, thank you for being here, and General Vaughn, and all of our civic leaders that I work with day in and day out. I want to thank Tony Sheridan and his Military Affairs Committee. Dara and Angela are here. This is not something we do once in a while. This is something we do all the time, day in, day out. We meet every month to work on issues that affect military families. So this bill here today is extremely important on a local level, on a state level, and on a national level. And I want to kind of walk you through that just briefly. So the military is primarily a male-dominated place. We all know that. And we could talk all day about why that is. I think it's going to be like that for the rest of my life. What that means is 90%, more than 90% of military spouses are women. And so when the governor established his Governor's Council on Women and Girls, I raised this issue at the very first meeting. And the Lieutenant Governor, who chairs that council, has kept it on the agenda. So here we are, 2 years later, and we're going to experience an outcome. We're not going to talk about this anymore. We're going to get it done. So before the pandemic, military spouses had an unemployment rate of 16%. That was 4 times the average at the time. It might be worse now. 71% reported that they were underemployed. So they had more education, more licensing than they needed for the only job they could get. 77% say that second income is essential in a military family. You can't make that military salary stretch far enough. And this is the important thing. 43% said that military spouse employment leads to a decision to stay or leave the military. That's what takes this up to the national level. It's a national security issue. A lot of service members suffer long-term family separation because of an economic reality, not because of their mission. I personally know of a Navy base in this country. 60% of the officers at that base are geographic bachelors. They left their families somewhere else for education and for a job. This will help alleviate that stress. The secretaries of the Army, Navy, and Air Force have asked DOD to make future basing decisions, and that's code word for BRAC. Future basing decisions based on a state's progress on education and spousal employment. So that means we almost lost this base twice. The next time a BRAC comes, we're going to be talking about our progress on this issue. They've also reached out, the service secretaries reached out to the National Association of Governors and said, we need help. We can't fix this at the federal level. We need state legislatures to take this up. We need governors to take this up. And we've done that here. When I testified before the General Law Committee, I had to tell them, Connecticut is number 50. We are last in the nation on this issue. I've lived in Connecticut 25 years. I'm not used to ever saying that we're last on something. Well, today, we become a leader in the country. We move up to like the top 10, showing progress on this issue. All right, so who wins in this legislation? I think everybody wins. I think military families win because it alleviates some financial stress. I think employers win because it's going to bring talent into the workforce faster. Talent employers need, and jobs the spouses need. The Connecticut state economy is going to benefit from this because if you have more discretionary money in a military family, it flows right back into the local economy. Other newly arriving residents will benefit from this. I like the fact that we take an approach where we can solve a problem for a military family, but then make that solution available to the larger population. So we're not doing something in total isolation for a special group. We're using that special group to get us to a solution that helps everybody. Our military installations are going to benefit because, as the captain talked about, A happy sailor is a hard-working sailor. And if sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guardmen come to work and they're worried about their family, that is an impact on readiness. And it's going to have a national solution for us if more states follow our example. Then the attrition rate that we're seeing in our all-volunteer military will be improved. I want military families to have a great experience in southeastern Connecticut. The Navy brought me here, and I stayed, and I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. I want other people to have that experience. Our message is so clear. It is so clear. Connecticut is a great place to be stationed. It's a great place to live, to raise a family, to work, and to retire after you leave the military. So, to our military families, welcome. We're glad you're here. We want you in our schools. We want you in our neighborhoods. We want you in our workplaces. We want you to stay here. So with that, I'm going to introduce Holly Cheeseman. Holly is actually my representative. I live in her district. But Holly's been a great partner with me. We work on a lot of issues together. And on this particular bill, she was our secret weapon in the legislature, really being a great champion for us. And I'm just so glad to see you. Thank you for all your work, Holly.
Thank you so much, Bob. And I just have one criticism today. Please, you have to arrange the wind so it's blowing my hair backwards. I worked so hard to fix it this morning. Anyway, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Captain Moore, Captain Kelly. It's an honor to be here today. And as Bob said, we have worked long and hard on this bill to create the opportunity for those military spouses to continue their careers, their trades, because that is so important. And I think it's very telling that this is happening in August, because it was just over 16 years ago, in fact, August 24th, 2005, that the sword of Damocles, the last brack that was hanging over the head of this subbase, Governor Rell announced that the Department of Defense had ruled that this base would remain open. And I think it was at that point that Governor Rell created your position, Bob, to ensure that Connecticut would never be left behind when it came to advocating for an important asset to our towns, our cities, our country, and the world, like the subbase. And as Bob said, now the Department of Defense is looking even more holistically at bases and the possibility of BRAC. They're rating us on our friendliness to providing those career opportunities to the military spouses. So I'm very, very proud to have been involved in this. And as Bob said, this doesn't just benefit military spouses. Licensure, in my point of view, harms so many people. It harms women. It harms minorities by creating barriers to entry. In the 1950s, fewer than 5% of occupations required licensing. Now it's between 25 and 30%. In what universe does it make sense for an EMT to require 150 hours of training, whereas a hairdresser or a barber requires 1,500 hours? What universe? The state of Connecticut. So I hope as we go forward, not only have we provided fabulous opportunities for our military spouses, but we will continue to work with the Department of Consumer Protection, with the Department of Public Health, who've been so responsive during this, and with this governor and the legislature. Nothing is more important than creating opportunities for people in Connecticut and moving into Connecticut to have trades, to have careers, to provide for their families and have the great quality of life that we know we have in this region. So I'm delighted to have been part of this process. I'm so proud to be here today and thank everyone who was involved. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, Susan Beisowitz.
Thank you so much, Holly, and I'm so proud to be here on this beautiful day at this great base with our governor, our military leaders, and our military families as the governor signs this bill into law. I'm especially pleased because this bill comes as the result of a great idea. At one of the first meetings of the Council on Women and Girls, Robert Ross brought this idea to us. And for the past 2 legislative sessions, our council worked alongside our legislators to get this passed. But he raised the issue of military spouses having difficulty working within their chosen occupation because they had to move so frequently, and licensure was different in every state. And here's some stunning statistics. Approximately 90% of our military spouses are women. So this was definitely within the purview of our Council on Women and Girls. And 35% of military spouses in the labor force work in licensed professions. And so they are 10 times more likely to have moved across state lines last year than their civilian counterparts. So this was a huge problem for mainly female military spouses who, while they were waiting for months, even years, to get their certification, to get their licensure in this state, they were much more likely to be unemployed or employed in lower paying jobs. That's why it's such a win for our military families to finally make this happen. So the licensure red tape is just creating a national security issue, really, by creating an unnecessary hardship for military families, thousands of them in our state. And so we are so pleased to support them by allowing them finally to pursue their professions and to give those great families our support. So we are delighted to be removing this barrier. And again, just want to thank Robert Ross and all of our partners on our Veterans Committee for helping to make this happen. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure, but I do believe it is my great honor to introduce my awesome partner in state government, our wonderful Governor, Ned Lamont.
Get me on track. Hey, thanks, Susan. Good morning, everybody. I love being here in front of the Nautilus. I mean, it's just amazing. With all due deference to Virginia, this is the submarine capital of America, and we made the first. We make the best. This is our response to Sputnik and set an example around the world and kept the peace. That's what Captain Moore was explaining to me. And I loved to hear his comments that what we're doing here today is about keeping this the best in the world, the best sub-base in the world. And part of that is how we treat military spouses, and part of that is about family-friendly, and part of that is about making Connecticut a great place to work. And pick up a little bit where Holly left off. We work every day to make sure it's easier for people to work here in this state. I know there's still hesitancy here. Our infection rate, Deirdre Gifford, our amazing Commissioner of Social Services, we're up at a little over 3%. Still the best in the country, but we're watching this carefully. I got to do everything I can to give people confidence you can go back to work safely. We've tried our best to make it easier for people to get back to work. Keeping our schools open is really important. What that means to spouses, what that means to parents, what that means to single parents. And our schools are going to open safely this fall, just like they did last fall. And when it comes to family-friendly, we had the biggest expansion of daycare and childcare in the history of the state, making that easier for families, making that easier for spouses to be able to take care of their kids in the best way possible and still get on with what they got to do. We're paying a little more across the board. Working families, middle-class families saw a wage boost. Most of that related to the market, a little bit related to the minimum wage, which went up just a couple of days ago. Some of it related to a big tax cut for working middle-class families, thanks to our friends in the legislature here, the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is all the lead up to how do we make this an easier place to work? How to make this an easier place for folks who are moving to the state to be able to work or continue working. And that's what this licensure bill is all about. It is cumbersome as heck. You know, you got 50 different states, 50 different licensing mechanisms. It can be long. We know that from tens of thousands of people moving in the state saying, what do I have to do to get recertified? Bob Ross is telling me back when he moved to this state, and his wife was an excellent trained nurse. He had done it for well over a decade and came to this state and had to start all over again commuting to Hartford to get that. No more. You don't have to do that anymore. And that's so important to our families. And it's particularly important to our military families. I want you to stay here forever. I hope you love Connecticut and don't get sent somewhere else. But most folks stay here, 2, 3, 5, 6 years. And that's thousands every year coming. And I just want to make sure that when you come, you know you're welcome. You know that we're so proud that Connecticut's your home. And what it means to be able to have a job, keep a job, whatever you are doing, maybe from some other state, make it easier to transfer that licensing right here. I think that's great for families, it's great for the base, and it's really great for the state of Connecticut, and that's why this bill was so important. And without further ado, let's sign it. What do you say?
Oh my goodness, yes we are. All right. And
Who gets those?
I do.
Don't leave anybody
Rob,
out.
we're going to give you that. And Holly, we're going to give you that. Absolutely. There we go. And let's see. There you go. Captain Kelly, thank you all so much. And we'll do one photo, and then I'm going to hand it with
Get nice and tight. Kind of like you like each other,
We are.
but not too close.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Okay, thanks everybody. Here you go, Holly. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. There you go. Thank you.
We're going to do off topics from the podium, I think, after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to do off topics from the podium. So we can do on topics and then off topics.
Okay. Hi, Erin.
Have we met before?
I don't think
I'll get the tough one.
Sorry guys, just gonna be asking questions, so if you guys can sit. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're happy to have so many of our media partners here, so the Gov will take any questions. Really?
I'll go first.
All right, thank you. No questions?
I got one for you. Oh, is someone else talking?
Wait a minute, can we go, she had the first one and then we'll go to you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will the state be requiring vaccines for state employees?
We're just on topic to start.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, so any questions on the bill that was just signed, the occupational licensing bill?
I was just curious, like, how much of a choice do people in the military have to move their families? You're saying you hope that people will want to come to drive.
Yeah, so military families usually can expect a transfer about every 2 or 3 years. Sometimes it works out and they can actually stay in the same location, a different job but the same location. But more often than not, they have to move to a different location. And then they have to make those family choices about, spousal employment and education. And do you really want to move those kids in your family? And what we want to do is make sure that Connecticut's always really attractive to either stay here or come here.
How much of a say? Like, say, I'm really dying to go to Connecticut and not Alaska.
So in the military, the culture is you get to ask. You get to put out your preference sheet of what you would like to do, where you would like to go. But the needs of the military always come first. And so if there's an opening there, maybe they can send you there. If there's not, you're going to have to go where you're told. And that's part of the great compact of the all-volunteer military.
Do we have, like, maybe a number in terms of how many spouses there are attached to this base?
I think on any given day, there's about 9,000 people associated with this base. So, maybe 60, 70% would have a spouse. So it's a significant number. And that's just this base. That doesn't include all the military spouses that are associated with the Coast Guard and the National Guard and reserve branches. But we came to southeastern Connecticut because this is where the concentration is. This is where this is going to play out in the biggest way because of the military presence here.
Can you just talk about the types of professions that are included under this, and also this allows somebody who lives in California, if they're sort of licensed in a profession, to then come here and rely on that license if it's granted somewhere else. Is that right?
Yeah, there's actually a very long list, and I don't know how many are on that list. I've seen the list. Holly, do you know how many?
So it's nursing and a lot of the building trades. Holly, you want to add?
My understanding is
Come on up.
It's a lot of public health licensing.
Sure, there's a lot of public health licensing, and I think it's the majority of the occupations that are licensed by the Department of Consumer Protection, and which goes on and on and on. And as I said, you'd be amazed at the number of occupations and trades that now require licensing that never used to.
Yeah, there are thousands, as I was saying, everything from accountants and architects to zoologists. It's amazing the licensing you need to get. We'll be able to short-circuit that. We're trying to get other group programs with other states just to expedite this. People are nodding how much easier that'll make life.
And essentially they just come here and they show that they've been licensed in another state, and then they can then start the process of applying for a job.
You
like
need
they
to
did
show
here.
that you've been licensed in another state, served in another state over a period of time, have residency here in the state of Connecticut, pay taxes here in the state of Connecticut. So it's not for fly-by-night people who are coming out. We'll expedite that process.
Any other on the licensing topic?
I was just curious, what other states do you know? You said that Connecticut's now at the top of the list, but what other states have something similar?
North Carolina is one.
So where is Chris Arnold? So Chris Arnold can talk to you at length about this. He is from DOD, where they track this state by state. So when I said that the state of Connecticut was in 50th place, that was his office that was waving the flag at me, and so that's why we got this thing fixed as quickly as we could. There's another thing embedded in this bill that's very important, and we didn't talk about it, but at the end of the bill, there's also, the governor is directing commissioners to look for interstate compacts. So to find compacts that are out there that we can enter into with other states so they recognize our license and we recognize their license. So that's kind of like
Reciprocity.
the next big step that's coming after this first bill, but it's embedded in this bill.
Any other licensing question? Okay, fire away, as it were.
Will it be required for state employees to get the vaccine?
There are no plans for that as yet, but we are looking into it. Seeing when the FDA approval on the vaccines may come. I know what President Biden's doing with federal employees and VA and talking to other governors. And I am talking to some of the union leadership as well, because we have to do that in coordination with them.
How about nursing homes mandate that their workers get vaccinated?
They can. I'm told that several are. These are primarily, these are private enterprises, so it's up to them. As I've said before, I can't think of anything more logical than making sure those nurses are all vaccinated.
Do you think that the state worker vaccine mandate is needed?
It's not needed if everybody would just voluntarily go get vaccinated, but we still have certain, groups within state employ where you have, 40% of the people unvaccinated. And some of them are very forward-facing, dealing with patients or special needs, corrections. So we're going to take a look at that or a mask. So that or a mask and testing. So there are different variables that we're going to figure out over the next week or two.
That's when you think something like that would be coming?
I think so.
Governor, what type of feedback have you gotten from CBAC on these discussions about whether to mandate a mask?
I'll just tell you that we're all on the same page. We want to keep people safe. We want to keep state employees safe. We want to keep those that they're in contact with. And there was broad agreement on that. And I think the conversations were very positive.
If you were to pursue a mask mandate for most or all state employees, do you think CBAC would support it?
I think they'd certainly be open to the discussion.
Where do we stand on masks in schools? Who will be making that decision, and when is that decision coming?
We're getting closer to that because the world is changing every day with the Delta variant. And I think the strong guidance that you got from the CDC and the strong guidance you got from Connecticut's Department of Public Health, that guidance being everybody in those schools are better off wearing a mask. From there, how that is enforced, we'll figure that out over a period of time.
Do you know who's going to be making that decision for the state? Will it be your office?
Yes.
Yes, and do you have any idea when? There's a lot of parents who are asking us every day,
I know. We're in early August, and school starts at the end of August, and I've always tried to give everybody at least a couple weeks' notice so people can plan accordingly, and you'll have a couple weeks' notice.
How about boosters, Governor? Have you guys been talking with the federal government about booster shots for the vaccine? Are we getting a supply in? Do we have any idea on when that might be happening?
Better get right behind me here, Deirdre. I was talking to Washington, I could tell you this morning, and obviously they are moving closer, I think, towards boosters, starting with folks who are immunocompromised or maybe have some greater risk, or those that had their vaccine some while ago, and I'll be waiting for their lead. Anything else on that?
Just to add that we don't think supply will be an issue. It won't be like last December when we started the vaccine program because there's ample supply. As the governor indicated, it's likely that if there are boosters required, it'll be just for a subset of those of us who are vaccinated, probably immunocompromised, probably people over a certain age. So we don't anticipate shortages or of vaccine writ large. And at DPH, we're already talking to our vaccine partners about both boosters and kids and getting ready for that eventuality.
Commissioner, is it possible that we've already reached herd immunity with vaccinations and those who have natural immunity from the virus?
Okay.
Well, there's still a fair amount of unknowns about how long and how protective so-called natural immunity is. That is immunity that arises from having contracted COVID infection. So we don't really know specifically. I would say there's laboratory evidence that you get a much stronger and more robust immune response after vaccination. than after a COVID infection. And that's why we continue to recommend that even those who've had COVID go ahead and get vaccinated, because you'll be best protected if you do that. We're seeing increases in our cases in Connecticut, as you all know. And so clearly we haven't reached the stage of herd immunity when it comes to the Delta variant. So we all need to get vaccinated.
What is the state seeing in terms of vaccine rates right now? Are they going up?
I'm happy to say that over the last 3 weeks, we've seen increases in the number of people initiating the vaccine series. We were up over 20,000 people initiating vaccine. Our low point was around 17,000. We're seeing this all around the country, but we're seeing big increases in states that had much lower vaccination rates than Connecticut. But even in Connecticut, where we still have several 100,000 people who left to be vaccinated, we're starting to see that rate pick up. So that's a really good sign.
Governor, back to the schools and masks. Was there any conversation over maybe having just elementaries mask up, since those kids are not available for vaccine, and that the olders maybe would not have to because they've been vaccinated?
I've certainly seen that being considered. I see what Massachusetts put out in terms of the younger age groups versus the high school. So we got to take that into account. Look, the most important thing is making sure our kids can get back to school safely. And I want those kids in person, in school. I worry that there are going to be a lot of these 2-week quarantines and ball teams that shut down. So that's a real priority, I think, to make sure our schools stay open, and that will be the lens that I look through.
Speaking of masks now, statewide, outside of schools, we have this strongly recommend in place because of the science. When I went to get coffee this morning, the whole coffee shop knowing how to mask on. Is this strongly recommend going to work? Why not just make it a mask mandate if we have the science to back up the need for masks in public and inside?
I think strongly recommend is probably working. We're not Florida. You know, Florida tells local businesses and local municipalities, you cannot keep your customers safe in the way you think is best. I think, frankly, I think municipalities, I think superintendents, I think, business owners and restaurant owners are in a good position to say maybe someone will be vaccine only, someone will say I'd like to see you've been tested, someone may say otherwise. I think we're going to keep going with that process a little bit longer unless the world changes under our feet.
You're not considering making it a mask mandate right now?
Not at this point, no.
Superintendents, does that mean, are you looking to leave that masking and school decision up to superintendents, or will you make a statewide statement on this?
I'll make a statewide statement. How strong that is, we'll find out very soon.
Governor, along those lines today, Governor Cuomo in New York came out and said he thought that venues such as baseball parks, stadiums, things like that, that they should really take it upon themselves to say vaccinated people only. Is that, you think that's the right way to go?
Look, I think it makes a certain amount of sense. I like leaving it up to the venues right now. I like to go to places where I know people have been vaccinated. I like to go to stores where more people are indoors and wearing a mask. That's just who I am. And I think you're finding, as Deirdre was saying, the world is headed that way for a little bit longer. I'm with, Dr. Gottlieb. I'd like to think that in the next month or two, this burns through relatively quickly, like we're seeing in Britain right now. We get on the backside of this for a really good fall.
Doesn't that just mean more cases, though? If if there are places where people are just going inside, not wearing masks, if you're choosing to go places where people are masked, people aren't, that means the cases are spreading faster, no?
I think what you're seeing around the state of Connecticut is people generally using really good common sense, doing the right thing. If they go into a store and it's empty, maybe they're a little more relaxed about the mask. If they're going to a store and it's crowded, they don't know who they're hanging around with. I find overwhelmingly they're wearing the mask, and I find overwhelmingly our stores and restaurants are saying, if you're not, put on the mask.
Governor, what about restaurant guidance? Do you have
Restaurant
any
guidance for me is like it is for the stores. I think, all throughout. We opened up, well over a year ago, and then later on for indoor. I think the restaurants did it well. I think they put up the protective barriers. I think they kept the distance. They had the masks, especially when you were walking between tables. I salute their judgment on this, and I'm going to go with their judgment. for now anyway.
So you wouldn't recommend that they reduce the capacity size again as it was before, or?
I'm not making any recommendations on that, but some of them may say, hey, look, Tony feels more comfortable going into an indoor restaurant where tables are more separated. I think they'll make that judgment. I think they'll also be very strict on, the nature of the mask and make sure their customers feel safe.
Why the shift from the beginning of the pandemic when we had all of these restrictions to now when it seems like this is a serious situation to kind of saying, oh, let's leave it up to the people?
There's one big difference. We've got, 75% of our adults vaccinated. We have 90% of those who are most at risk. Those are the folks, say, over the age of 60, 65, who are now vaccinated. We know the vaccines are incredibly effective and they work. And they prevent, obviously they prevent hospitalizations and serious consequences. I think we're in a very different place today than we were 8 months ago.
On the vaccine, we're still trying to incentivize people to get the shot. We know it works. We're incentivizing still with concerts, though. Are you guys considering maybe not doing that since what we know about the Delta variant?
That's a fair point. More broadly, I'll be blunt. I mean, these incentives sound really good, Hey, $1 million lottery ticket. I get to sit front row at the hip hop concert. It's not making that big a difference. So we're doing everything. What's making a difference? Delta's making a difference. The idea that this incredibly infectious strain is out there. That's why, as Deirdre said, in Connecticut, more people are getting vaccinated, and in Arkansas, a lot more people are getting vaccinated.
Governor, any idea how soon the FDA will have our official full approval for these vaccines? Because we've talked to people who said, well, they don't even have full approval. They're just emergency use authorization.
They're not going to be rushed, but I am told it'll be very, very soon.
Month or so?
Yes.
Okay.
Any decisions coming on travel? A lot of people have end of summer vacations coming up. Florida hit their all-time caseload. What's coming on travel? Any mandates?
Look, we can't do very much by ourselves. If you're flying, you're coming in from, Logan or LaGuardia or something like that. I think it's better people stay closer to home a little bit. That makes life easier. Skip Florida for now. Right now, I don't think you're not having any discussions about mandates on travel, are you yet, with the other public health folks? Not right now. Right now.
Governor, how about a vaccine passport? As you look back, do you wish that is something that you would have enacted back in the day, if you will?
It was really polarizing. It was just everybody was getting jumpy about it. We have a site, and you can go to that site, and if you want authentication that you got vaccinated, you can have it printed right out. You can take that. There's some restaurants that say, I'd like to see if you've been vaccinated or not. I feel more comfortable, and my customers do. I think that's good enough for now.
Governor, switching gears to infrastructure for a minute, it looks like the federal bill is gaining some movement. What projects would you like to see funded under any sort of federal infrastructure package?
Well, you got a bridge right somewhere right over there that would be a big priority for me. I know how important it is, to electric boat. I know that trucks can only go over it in one direction when they're fully loaded. I know that we want to get the railways speeded up in any way we can. I want to fix those bridges that are not in a state of really good repair, at least make sure that they're safe. Those are some of the real priorities we have.
Back to schools, is the state going to allow distance remote learning?
We want everybody in school. I think we did it last September when the infection rates were really high. We did it very safely. It was in many cases the safest place to be. There are online tools that we've continued on a statewide basis. So for those homeschoolers, they got a kid who's compromised, they don't feel comfortable, that will be an option, but it's not our recommendation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you so much.
Military spouses over here that have very